Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our Native ancestors' stories and history alive, while also sharing with you our Native culture, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And I hope you'll do me a favor. Feel free to like and share these episodes. I so appreciate it. Yakuki.
I wanted to serve my country, but I joined the National Guard at 17 years old, and I went to basic training in between my junior and senior year. About 3 years in, I volunteered to go to Afghanistan, and I learned a lot about the Mongolian culture. I learned a lot about the Afghan culture. That opened my eyes that there's so much difference in the world, and a lot of people, they've never seen, just the privilege that sometimes we may have.
See and share our stories at togetherwe'remore.com.
You're listening to part 2 of this series.
When you leave, is that so hard? Like when you retire or you get moved to a different squadron, for instance, what does that feel like? I can't even imagine.
It's a great feeling to be going home. It is. Not to take anything away from that, but to leave your friends, leave that brotherhood or sisterhood, whichever it may be. It's the bond that you built. It's hard to leave.
Yeah.
I can visualize the night I left, the people that were there seeing me off at the bus, my friends. They are lifelong friends. Those are people that I could trust every ounce of my life. And I think that every military veteran will tell you that there are those friends that you are that close with, that you trust with your life. One of my best friends that I'd made actually was my best man at my wedding, and
Wow.
we still keep in contact. And,
I love
totally,
that.
yeah, totally, night and day growing up experiences. Again, small town, large city, but we bonded, and me and him and several others did, and we stayed in contact, and we always have. And like I said, nothing that we wouldn't do for each other, and that bond just is. It would be hard to break. But you asked the question just as how did that feel, and how it's tough, but it is heartbreaking to leave your friends. And there's times they go by, and there's you see or you hear things and you're just like, oh, I remember that one. And you just all of a sudden you're just taken back to that time with those friends. And I think I was at a ribbon cutting ceremony. It's been a month or two ago for the tribe, and my friend called me and he just needed to talk, and he just wanted to visit, and he wasn't having such a good day. And we visited and went on, laughed and cried a little bit, and we both ended the call feeling good. And so like I said, it's a brother. It's hard to explain. It's I tell audiences at different times that it is a brotherhood and sisterhood like no other. That they're so close.
Well, can you share a story or reflection from your time in the military that stayed with you?
Oh goodness. Oh, there are so many. You think you're going to see the world. You sign up for, everything, and this kid from Talihina goes to Latin America, right? Still in state,
Right.
and it's flat land. There's no trees, and you're trying to convince all your buddies in basic training, hey, this is not Oklahoma is not ugly. You have not seen the trees and the mountains where I'm from.
Right.
And so you take that, and all of a sudden you graduate, and you don't know where you're going. You don't know what orders are coming down, how you're selected, or any of that. So my dad and I are there in the motel, and the next morning I've got to go. I've got to report back, and that day I have to go. I have to leave to Germany. I'm given orders to leave to Germany.
Oh my gosh.
And I forget, I think it's their 12 or 14 hour flight. another I land in Frankfurt, another 8 hour bus ride to where until they let me off. But the first 2 weeks of my life in the regular army, once I make it to my base, I have to take what is called German Head Start. And I don't know who named it that, but that's exactly what it was. It was an introduction into the culture. It
Okay.
was comical, but I mean it was, it's great. And because I've reflected on it and even referred back to it even within the tribe, it was a immersion into the culture, the German culture on a small scale.
Mm.
We learned about their currency. We learned about their customs and traditions. We learned their language, and which I've often really reflected about this is, wow, I didn't, I didn't know. I knew at one point I knew more German than I did my own Choctaw language, which I've
Oh,
worked on that. And
wow.
yes. So, but after my class, the story for me that's really funny is that we had a field training exercise following that. Well, this was I think I would have got it probably January, February. And in Europe, not knowing what the weather is like, um, we load up, we go out early one morning, and we're supposed to be out 30, 45 days. We get to our first stop, and I'm the lowest man on the pole, right? And so I've got to go out. As soon as we land, the snow is chest deep to me. I'm 6'3" or 4. I'm having to dig down. They're telling us to dig down to the dirt to set our tents. And it's just like,
Uh,
yes. And so I'm like, in reality, all of a sudden sets in, oh dear God, what have I got into? So
that was
yeah,
the
that was
moment, the defining moment of, oh my Lord.
yes, it was just like, wait, what in the world? Yeah. And the
No
next day,
way.
oh yeah, the next day we're doing fire missions, live fire missions, and I'm running. They have me running out across. Me and others are running out across this field, setting up some equipment. And this is no exaggeration, Rachel. I'm running, and the next thing I know, I'm looking up at daylight because I had sunk in the snow that was probably 7, 8 foot deep. And I was
No.
having, yes, and I was having to climb out of that. And I just thought, am I going to make this or not? They did
This is
not
how
teach
I
this in
die.
basic training. Yeah.
I'm in the army and this is how I die. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
Yeah.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly a learning experience for sure.
Yeah, you should have gotten a little extra patch for that one, you know?
Yeah. Something. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Things
But
on his feet, able to get out of his snowdrift or whatever.
yeah, it was very funny. I mean, the night I landed, it was probably 10 or 11 o'clock that night. I finally got to my base and got to the barracks where I was assigned. When I get there, this young man comes running in there, and he's a sergeant. I never forgot this. He's a sergeant. He said, okay, you've got to tell me where you're from. You're from Oklahoma. And I said, yeah. I said, you, Sergeant, you've probably never heard of this small town in your life. I said, I'm really, really embarrassed to even say because you won't know where it's at. You've
You
never
won't
heard of
know.
it.
Yeah.
He's like, no. He said, no, try me. He said, I'm from Oklahoma. He said, sure, try me. And I told him, I said, well, I'm from Talihina. He said, well, I'm from Red Oak. Well, in proximity, that's right over the mountain, maybe 15 miles from us. And I
No
said, oh my God.
way.
Yeah. So small world, right? And
Such a small world.
yeah, he was actually leaving. He was getting out of the army in like 3 or 4 days. And I was just like, man, there's one guy that could actually identify with me.
That was my one friend from back
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. That was my one. So yeah. Yeah. One friend
Oh
from
my
home.
gosh.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, and did you meet any other Native Americans there?
Yes, sure. Well, I was doing basic training with a few Navajo young men, and then I think
Wow.
over on our base there wasn't a whole lot. of Native Americans on my base. I think
Bet.
myself and maybe two or three others. Seems like one Apache, one Navajo. So yeah, and that was a whole educational series in its own. I've told these stories to other people before that, you know, and this is nothing disrespectful or degrading about any ethnic group or otherwise, but you know, I've had soldiers come up to myself speaking Spanish, and
Oh, right.
and I would have to explain because obviously I don't lose my tan, and so
Right.
it stays with me, right? And so I had to explain that, and so then that obviously sparks more discussion, and I have to go into detail about that, and people were amazed. Really, there's Indians? Do you live in teepees? Do you live on reservation? Do you this? Do you
There
that?
it
And I'm like,
goes. Yep.
so in true Choctaw fashion, I've got to have some fun with it, right?
Right.
So I may have took liberty of it a few times and had some fun with it, but yeah,
As you should.
yes, yeah. So yeah, that's some good stories I can tell you.
During your time in the military, you had a moment of prayer where you asked God about your purpose. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. That was towards the end of my time, and yeah, that's one of those moments, those little markers in your mind that you won't ever forget, and that's yeah, laying there on my bunk, and I can still see myself there, and it was probably within a month or less before I was scheduled to come home and get out. Just sitting there and just, you know, for me, I was praying and I just asked the Lord, I said, God, you know my heart, and I want to work with my people. The Lord works in mysterious ways, and that holds true. And he definitely has answered that prayer all my life. I can see the doors opened at every stage of it where he's just opened and led into a different avenue for me to serve our people, and that's really the long and short of it. I mean, there's no exaggeration to that. I mean, it was and I'm in it too, Rachel. I mean, I wanted that was the desire for me to come back and work with my people. It wasn't that, you know, God, I need a job. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
You know, and whatever. And I think I even asked him in whatever capacity that it's in.
Hmm. That's
So
amazing. And
yeah, I
he
can.
listened to
Mhm.
that, obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, but also what's great is that you also have been able to help with our veterans, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think that, you know, that could have been one of the reasons that you were called to serve our country and then called to serve our people and our veterans. It just all makes sense. So you've worn many hats over the years, from healthcare to behavioral counseling to leadership. Walk us through that career journey, if you don't mind, with the Choctaw Nation. Like, how did you go from the healthcare field to assistant chief?
Oh gosh, that's 34 years of a path.
Ah,
um, no,
right.
that's so. Whenever I returned home, um, I started applying for jobs there in Talihina at what we referred to as the old Indian hospital.
Mhm.
Of course, the tribe had control of that. That was the Choctaw Nations. And when I actually started there in material management and as one of their supply officers, and as I worked there, I just felt led by the Lord. I just kept feeling that gnawing that my wife and I were to go to school, get some kind of education. Didn't know what direction. And thank the good Lord, I had taken the GI Bill whenever I'd signed up. Thank the good Lord.
Fantastic.
Yes. And so through that, her and I began. And we knocked out our associates, and this was working full time jobs, going at night. This was
Wow.
before we had even started a family. And so
Wow.
once we began our bachelor's degree, it's like, okay, now we're done with the basics. What are we going to concentrate on? What do we want to do? Not knowing, we're thinking, let's teach, coach, and the doors kept getting shut. And there was a lady, and I always say that she was sent. Doors began to open. She, Dr. Linda Massey, talked to my wife and I about a new program that East Central began. And it was there. We could drive to the McAllister campus, about 45-minute drive. And 3 nights a week, we began going down that path. And even on weekends, we were grabbing every class that we could to get, because we weren't traditional students. We weren't able to get the 15 or 18 hours or even 21 hours. So we were summers, weekends, weekend classes, whatever we could get. We were begging teachers for, and we would eventually get our basics or get our bachelor's degree. And we knew that that was not the stopping point. And so we worked on our graduate degrees, and this is the whole time we're still working. But in our bachelor's, I get tickled about this, and I tease my wife from time to time, and people probably tired of me telling the story, but I can recall at different points in our life, the only time we ever took off is we took off a semester for each child after they were born, because the story I wanted to tell is I can still see her today, pregnant, sitting sideways in those school chairs in class, and just being there, grinding it out, getting the class done, and 8 months and just miserable.
Oh
And
my
she was there,
gosh.
and like I said, there was a lot of times she was sitting sideways in a chair, just because she was at 7-8 months along. And we would take a semester off, and then we would start right back up. And like I said, we finished that and knew we were working jobs during the day and that at night. And then we would looking back, it's just like I don't know what we were thinking, but we survived it. Surely there's a survivor group out there for people like us. But
Right?
we'd get our graduate degree and start working towards license.
You know what I love about this is that Felicia is her name, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you both had the same vision and you got to do it
Mm-hmm.
together. And as
Yeah.
hard as it was, you got to help each other, but it also must have been a little bit of fun, right?
It was, that's, if you were to sit down and talk to her, she would tell you the same thing, is that whatever we have done, we've always done together. And that's one of those things.
Love
And
it.
that's, we did it together. We'd have the conversations that, it sounds funny now, but those were our date nights, I guess you could say, is our drive over to class. But
Meet you at the school.
oh yeah, meet you at the school. And but since then, Rachel, she's 25 plus years now as a substance abuse counselor with our Choctaw women. And so yes, and she loves it, and it's for her, it's a ministry for her. And and for me, I mean, that's not only am I blessed with my birth family being servant leaders, but even my wife and her family in that service oriented heart. When I'm talking to our tribal members, asking them what do they want to do in life, where do they see themselves, and how are they going to get there? I always encourage them, if it's education, don't think about it's such a big hill to climb. You've got to put one foot in front of the other, and eventually you're going to be standing on top of that mountain looking back at what you have accomplished. And I've teased on my own family. Not going to school or getting some kind of trade certification, I can't identify with that because there's no excuse. If
Right? I
myself
was
and
going to
my
say, if y'all can do it,
right,
anybody can do it. Oh my
exactly,
goodness.
yeah,
Right? I love that what you're saying is if you have the desire to get an education, there is no excuse. For our Choctaw people, there's the Choctaw Foundation, which does provide
hmm
scholarships, and there's lots of support through the tribe. So I would encourage any Native Americans to get with your tribe and see what resources are out there.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with that, Rachel. There are plenty of resources. There, the only limitation is what we place on ourselves. Always strive to encourage anyone that has a goal, not to put it on the shelf, but to go after it.
Absolutely. Well, and a lot of people might look at you and go, well, you're an assistant chief, as if that came naturally and easily to you, that it just was handed to you and put on your plate. No, you followed a path. You were in the army first, and then you got your education afterwards while you were married, and at times while your wife was pregnant and raising a family. I can't even imagine. So, guys, we have no excuse. Let's get to work.
Yeah.
Well, today you serve as assistant chief, but you also take part in veteran advocacy, tribal governance, national partnerships, and you've earned your master's in biblical and theological studies. It's a lot. I'm sure that we possibly cannot even imagine how busy each of your days are. And I wanted to just talk very briefly about your childhood, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. So when you were 12 years old, a pivotal event took place in your life. Would you tell us about that?
Sure. When I was when I was around 12, probably around 11, but when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. 12, she had passed away. Eventually, it spread to throughout her body, and she had passed away. And unfortunately, during this time, which would have been the early 80s, during this time frame, technology is not what we have today, the early detection and so forth.
So true.
So she did pass away. Great, great mom. Like I mentioned earlier, I had the opportunity. She had actually worked for the tribe in the what was, I believe the term was manpower program. And what I assimilated with today is our job for the day program. It closely resembles that. And she was actually, I believe, the director at one point in time. And the focus of that, right along with that servant heart or that servant leadership, is she was working hard to help people get employment, to gain employment, either
Right.
within a tribe or other locations. And what's been neat over the past few years, and recently, I ran across a couple individuals that uh, had worked with her, and a couple that
Oh,
had, because of her, had became employed and actually retired from their place of employment. And they gave the credit to her, and that how hard she worked for them to gain employment. And so, yeah, she was a great woman, and just like my dad, enjoyed being outside and the picnics, whether it was sitting by the creek, maybe fishing and having a great time. But one of the things, one of my fond memories with her, I might have, I might have got in trouble, and
you might have.
I might have been in. I'll for full disclosure, but she had, while she was working for us, she had gathered canned good items for families in need at Christmas. And during that time, and I know it's probably, it was more common then for the grocery, the grocery bags were not always plastic for our young listeners, but
True.
they were, yeah, the paper sacks. So I would walk in our living room, and it would just be full of sacks of canned good items and donations for families that she had run across that were in need. And where I was going, where I might have got in trouble, is I may have seen a pack of gum in the top of those at times, and I may have taken one or two.
You
I'm just
might
saying,
have.
maybe, yeah, I may
We can
have.
neither confirm nor deny.
No, no, but um, you know, looking back, and then over the years, that turned into, um, oh goodness, it was a holiday basket for those in need, and now we have evolved that into vouchers for food items for families across the reservation area for those families that truly have a need, and it's that continuing heart, and that's I was blessed with a wonderful family in mom and dad.
Beautiful. And I'm sorry you lost her when you were so young, and she obviously was so young, really. And those memories though that you have of her and the legacy that she left behind, the good things that she did, I'm sure you definitely, and you and your family look back fondly on that time. And often when we've experienced loss, God or Jehovah brings
Mhm.
someone to somewhat fill that place of that loss. And that happened kind of in your case. Would you like to share about that?
Yeah, that it's probably a couple years, maybe three. I think it's maybe closer to 3 years after my mom had passed. Um, my dad had met a lady that he would eventually marry, Miss Norma. That I dislike using the term stepmother because I always say that I've been blessed with two great moms. I
Yeah.
don't think there's another lady that could have had stepped in at that time and been a mother like she was. And it was not only did I have a such a wonderful mom, birth mom that was a servant, but even my second mom, same way. She worked for the tribe, and she same way would give back
Wow.
and just give everything of her heart to people and the families that she served. I just that's I can't express enough how blessed I have been in my life.
I love that. Well, we know that many of our families were affected by boarding schools. Did your grandparents or great grandparents or anyone attend boarding schools?
So yes, my grandfather on my dad's side did. Sam Austin did. Now I would say neither one of my grandfathers did I have the opportunity to know. They had both passed away by the time I had come along. But
Mm.
my granddad on my dad's side had attended Jones Academy and Armstrong both, and bounced around, and eventually, some of the he didn't speak. That's one of the things is we had family reunions. What did granddad? What was he like? What did he ever
Yeah.
talk about that? And that's one of the I think with a lot of natives that attended boarding schools, they didn't share those experiences with their families. And
Very true.
he certainly fit in that category. He did not share a whole lot with his family about that. And what they did learn was from outsiders that may have known him,
Mm.
or his sister. He would eventually run away from Jones Academy. Finally, I think finally they didn't catch him, or they didn't go after him. And now this was when he was, gosh, when he was maybe I think 8 or 9, from what I understand, what I've been told. And then he was able to make it to his sister's house, grow up there, and
Wow.
yeah. So he didn't talk a whole lot about it, and unfortunately, like a lot of our folks with that same experience, the language he did not share that. And the one story my dad has told me is that the only time he heard him speak Choctaw, his native language, is when he wasn't around a family, wasn't at home, but on the weekends he would go up there. I think it's south of Valiant, and he knew where there were full blood Choctaws, and he would stop and visit families along the way, and they would do nothing but speak Choctaw. And my dad would, of course, play with their kids. Well, did you ever ask? Did you ever pick up? And he picked up a little, not enough. but
Right.
that's the
Wow.
only time he ever experienced seeing his dad speak the language, and that was with other full-blood Choctaws. Um, and it wasn't I don't think a thing of embarrassment, but my
Yeah.
when I've asked my dad and my aunts and uncles, is that his goal was to ensure his family was self-sustaining and that they learned enough about how the world he had I guess he had for me I take that he had the foresight that he could see the way the world was moving and that he
Yes.
did not want his children left behind.
It was about survival,
Yes.
oftentimes. So many languages wiped out. I'm so glad that Choctaw Nation has online Choctaw classes that people can take, no cost, um, and keeping that language alive because it's part of our sovereignty, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and God bless those who came before us.
Yes. Their sacrifices for sure.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. Well, you serve with the Choctaw Nation Honor Guard and support youth interested in military careers. And I was thinking about what you said earlier about how you liked being able to go to someone and talk to them about, you know, being in the military. Am I doing the right thing? What's going to happen to me? And so is that kind of why you got into that?
It is, I think for me, one of the things with the honor guard, and um, I it's one of the things I always wanted to do to give back and be a
Yeah.
part of. And with my schedule, that has not become a reality, even though they have, they
Okay.
have me on the they have me on the list. It's just it is next to impossible. But and
Yeah.
it's like my heart is there and my desire is to. But and it's no different when the the volunteer red jacket volunteer program or ambassadorship program through the VA, just volunteering to help other veterans at their uh, through their medical visits. It, that is when I learned about that. It's just like at least I'm physically able enough to either speak to another veteran and help them orientate them to a visit or even to help push a wheelchair down to an appointment and visit
Mm.
with them and just be a
Wow.
smiling face that they encounter that day. um, that's the giving back, the talking to the youth about the realities of serving. Like I said, I had the benefits, and that was of my family and friends, and that was on my heart that's an easy win and something easy, so easy to do, all of us. And when we started that, there were so many veterans that just come out with their hands raised and said, "Hey, I'll count me in. I'll volunteer." The veteran spirit is always, if I could summarize it, it's always giving back, always looking to serve others before being
Mm.
served. And
Wow.
that is, I've been amazed at during my time here on earth being able to witness that and be a part of it.
Wow. Amazing. Well, and for those who may not know, you mentioned the Choctaw Nation Honor Guard. Um, and that's obviously, again, you don't have a ton of time to get to all of it, but there's
Mhm.
also the Veterans Hospital Red Coat Ambassador, the chairman of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Veteran and Family Advisory Council. That's a lot, much less I see you on Facebook all the time with the things that you and Chief do. I don't know how you do it all. I really don't. But obviously you come from a family of people who serve others, who care about others. And we went to honor all Choctaw veterans today and all veterans, but your father included, who served in the 25th Infantry Division Field Artillery during the Korean War. What can you
Mhm.
tell us about his time in that Korean War?
So, holding true to my granddad, he did not speak much about it, but that is on par for many veterans that have experienced conflict. That's just one of those things that that's I believe is the norm. And when I the what he did express of his time in service was the friends and the fellowship, the good, the it's kind of what I mentioned earlier, the brotherhood that you make, the relationships that are so long lasting. Of course, with the 25th ID tropical lightning, he was stationed in Hawaii. Like like myself, he was able to see. Of course, he was in Schofield Barracks, and as he describes it, there were still bullet holes in the barracks from when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
And
Seriously.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so
Goodness.
he and I used to talk about and just I would ask him. I said, "Dad, have you ever thought about just how many historical places you and I have experienced?" And I don't ever want to take it for granted, but it's we have got to see things that not a whole lot of people have got to see and be a part of. But yeah, he used to explain his time when people would ask him about his time in the Korean War is that that he wasn't over there long, and it was just a very short duty, and he was very short about it. And so I wish I could share more, Rachel.
Yeah. And I think they do it somewhat to protect us, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
makes sense. But well, you've given your life to service, you've counseled, you've led, prayed, served in uniform, and now serve as a tribal leader. So, Yakoki Assistant Chief Jack Austin Jr., for serving our country and for sharing your story with us. And Yakoki, to all our Choctaw and all tribal veterans and their families, your service and sacrifice are never forgotten. And before we close, what words of wisdom would you like to leave with our listeners today?
Whatever path that you're on in your life is to always remember to keep putting one foot in front of the other, because eventually where you're headed, you'll get to, and never to look back where you came from, but always look forward and keep moving forward.
I love that. I'm actually taking that to heart myself. So, to our listeners, may we carry forward the Choctaw spirit in all we do, faith, family, and culture. And I would like to add service, whether that means to our communities around us and or to our country. As you celebrate our veterans this month, please take time to thank them for our service. Yakoki.
Chapislachki.
Chipisalachiki. Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.